Hello and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We're live from our studios here in Kokomlemle. Digital address GA0992539. Our top stories this hour. 5 people arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder after Chief of Kafaba was granted bail. More as the 5 admits to inviting the priestess who led the lynching of a 90-year-old woman to death, and the gender minister visits her family. Senior high students set to return home after their exit exams, but the Ghana Education Service will be testing them ahead, and those who test positive will remain on campus. Details shortly. And Minority in Parliament demands amendment to bill banning the importation of salvaged accident vehicles and second-hand cars which are more than 10 years old. So, do you have any cars on the way to Ghana, maybe by November? Let's have a conversation. We're live on digital television for free. We're also on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. We're streaming live on YouTube. My name is Gifty Ando-Apia. It's a pleasure coming your way. Please be my guest. I welcome you to the details of those stories and more. Now, for senior high schools with COVID-19 cases, their expectation of the much-awaited vacation after 6 weeks in school will be delayed. It is a precautionary measure taken by the Ghana Health Service in collaboration with the Ghana Education Service to avoid students carrying home the coronavirus. Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kuma Abuaje, hinted this at the Information Ministry's presser earlier today.
The goal track of the SHS2 are about completing today or tomorrow. The arrangement for discharge are in 3 categories, and there will be a press release on that. The schools that have not reported any case, it means that those students can vacate and go home. The second category were school that has had a case, but if in the last 2 weeks there will be no case, they can also advise that they can also vacate and go home. The third group will be any school that has had any positive case in the last 2 weeks. The assessment will be done to identify those who are contacts, and if any of them is in that class, their vacation will be delayed whilst we do an assessment and observation, after which they'll be asked to go home. And all parents concerned will be informed as soon as such a thing appears.
Meanwhile, 7 new COVID-19 deaths have been recorded in Greater Accra and Ashanti regions, bringing the national total to 182. 5 males and 2 females died from complications including anemia, kidney failure, and hypertension.
Show you the number of deaths per day, and you can see it just aligns with the June one. But currently, the reported number of deaths have significantly come down, and we hope this trend will continue as we go on. We added about 7 more deaths in the last update. And they've come from 5 from Ashanti and 2 from Greater Accra. Majority of them were males, 5 males, 2 females, aged between 33 to 60 years of age. About 4 of them, we do not have any known comorbidity. We are not saying no comorbidity, no known comorbidity, but that's what. But the rest were anemia with renal, kidney failure, hypertension, and another one with diabetes and hypertension. And these are the ones that are reported deaths. These are not very recent deaths, but these are when we now finish the audits and be able to add them.
Dr. Patrick Kuma Abuaje there. But the good news is active cases continue to decline. Dr. Abuaje says as of July 28, active cases were 3,223, whilst 33,096 had recovered. He attributes the decline to improved measures adopted by the officials to beat down the virus.
The breakdown of the active cases, as you can see, Ahafo has 94. Ashanti has 518 active cases. Bono has 18. Bono is 93. Central region has 193 cases. Eastern has 49. Greater Accra, for the first time, I dropped below 2,000. They are doing 1,900 active cases. Northeast, no active case. Northern Region has 7 active cases. OT has 52 active cases. Savannah has 1. Upper East has no active case. Upper West 13 active cases. Volta has 116. Western has 164, with Western North having 5 active cases. And the charts, the next chart, the graph will just show you exactly where they are. The graph showing now also shows you, the graph on the right tells you all the districts that have ever had a case. And you can see that in the last few current report of which about 2 weeks over, these are the districts that have reported a case. You can see that a significant number of our districts have not reported a case in this period. The hotspots continue to remain in the same areas of Greater Accra and Ashanti region, and you can see the Accra metros, Kumasi Metro, etc., that continue to show. Next slide, please. That continue to show the number, but we're still having a few Ningo Pram and the Sudan are reporting relatively very low cases. Normally, the active cases, we present them weekly because, I mean, as I'm speaking now, someone is either being discharged, among others. And so this is not a very clear slide, but as at 24th of July, we'll be doing that weekly. Next week, we'll give you an update on active cases, exactly where they are. You could see that as at that time, we had about 3,560 and 2,731 were on home care because they met the criteria. They didn't have any symptoms, and they did also not have any comorbidity that allowed us to that we should put them in. 360 of them were accounting for about 10.7% are in isolation. 263, 7.9% are in our treatment centers. Next week, we'll give you an update because we want to do a weekly thing to see, and that's an important figure to show us whether our system is choked, whether it's a number that the health system can contain. And I believe that, and I'm sure you believe that this is a number that the health system can contain. Because even
Dr. Patrick Umar-Boaje there earlier today. Well, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia says he is confident that managers of second cycle institutions will be more efficient in running the schools following the distribution of some 100 buses to senior high schools in the northern sector of the country. Speaking at the forecourt of Parliament on Thursday afternoon, he officially commissioned those buses. Dr. Bawumia said the gesture is a demonstration of the administration's commitment to quality education. Lateef Idrisu was at the commissioning ceremony and reports the education minister, who was also present at the program, somewhat compares President Akufo-Addo's achievement to that of Ghana's first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. There is more in this report.
Educational institutions, particularly the second cycle institutions, are bedeviled with plethora of challenges that are not helping the school administrations to properly run the schools. Cognizance of that, government in March this year promised to make provisions of buses to these schools to help the administrators properly manage the schools. Today, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has officially handed over 100 buses to second cycle institutions in the northern sector of the country. In his words, these buses are to help the school administrators to properly manage the schools.
First, I handed over 365 double cabin pickup trucks out of 840 procured by the government. These were distributed to all metropolitan, municipal, and district directorates of education, as well as selected agencies under the Ministry of Education. The remainder of the pickups are arriving, as the Minister for Education has said. I also handed out on that day 493 out of 2,000 motorbikes to aid the work of circuit supervisors and to further enhance their supervisory roles in the education sector. I further announced on that day that government had procured 350 buses for our senior high schools in the country, 100 of which would be distributed soon. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are gathered here in fulfillment of that promise to distribute the 100 buses because we have a president who is fully committed to education of our children and who believes in keeping his word.
Minister of Education, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, also had his turn to address heads of senior high schools gathered here, and he made a very daring statement.
This nation has witnessed the free senior high school project, Mr. Vice President. I do recall the 47 adverts that were made to undermine the free senior high school program in 2012. I do recall a famous statement that if free SHS was doable, Nkrumah would have done it. Can I also then say, since His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has delivered the free SHS, his government probably is better than Nkrumah's government.
So how are these buses going to help the school administrators to properly manage the schools? I'm joined by one of the headmasters of one of the schools in the northern sector. You introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, I'm Stephen Akuba, headmaster, St. John's Integrated Senior High School in Navrongo.
In Navrongo?
It is the only school, second cycle institution that integrates the hearing and the hearing impaired.
Oh, wow. You are a special school indeed. This has come in handy, you would say.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, with what we have just received today, I don't even know how to express my feelings. And I know when I go back to school, my students and members of staff will feel the same. Because this shows that actually the inclusiveness, government is actually supporting it. Yeah.
So the Vice President mentioned that there are several challenges facing second cycle institutions with administration. You don't have enough logistics, one of which is vehicle.
Yeah.
How is this going to change the way you manage and run the school?
Yeah, so now that we have this, at least any activity outside the school compound, we are in a position to convey our students and to bring them back, even if it involves members of staff. We can do it comfortably without going to elsewhere to ask for an assistance.
I'm Anna Millicent Agamba. I'm the headmistress of Gambibgo Community Day Senior High School.
From which of the regions?
Upper East Region, Zarungo.
Upper East Region. You're welcome to Accra.
Yeah, thank you.
How is this bus that you are going back to the Upper East Region with, how is it going to change the way you manage and run your school?
It's going to change a lot because this alone is going to be one of the enrollment drive for my school. My school, the students are few. And with this, we can get more students to come to the school. Yes. And since the school started, we haven't had any bus. So this is the first bus.
How long has the school been in existence?
Since 2018.
Okay, so you are 2 years in operation?
Yes.
And this is the first bus you are receiving from GetFund?
The first means of transport that we are receiving from GetFund. It has been hectic. It has been hectic. We do all errands from our own packets. And now, just as the Vice President said, it will help us in the administrative work. I'm very, very happy, and I know my students will be more happy.
So that's it for the schools and what's happening there. JoyNews' checks at Jamestown review poor adherence to all the preventive protocols. Some of the residents that JoyNews has been speaking to say they do not believe in the existence of the virus even now. Maxwell Agbagba has more.
Okay. The community is just located some meters away from the Jamestown Lighthouse. It's a fishing community that is down there. But all the people there have been relocated. In fact, let me say they have relocated to this side of town, which is very close to the Kole Lagoon, directly opposite the Ghana National Fire Service on the coastline there. They've all relocated, here. And two things we're looking out for. We want to find out from them what it is like living here after they relocated to this place to make way for the construction of the harbor, which we are told is being funded by the Chinese government, $60 million. We are told. We also want to find out, the adherence to COVID-19, health protocol here in the slum. And I'm grateful we have a man who is going to take us around, show us all the places that we need to visit here. Sir, you're welcome to JoyNews.
Oh, everything is nice. BBI fine.
Okay.
Nti pede ya de wona nto na ahwe mesi wa ba no ya nice. Nti pede ya che won mesi ano oti nyama record na adi ni nya ya pede ya kan na manfo ni nya wa ati.
He's going to take me around and show me more places. Here there are some gentlemen who are sitting here having fun this morning. I don't know exactly what they're doing. Let's greet them and find out from them what life is like living here, COVID-19, in the slums. Let's talk to them and find out what life is like here. Hello, good morning.
Fine.
Okay, great. Let me start with. Okay, yeah.
Wanganye lebine.
Sir.
Aganye ba womba nyumane. Aganye nye juen wa ake game formo bi jiwo. Nye ba wo mase. Aganye interview wo. Aganye ke won gbasana aganye biwo be ni ye ale.
Agba habosani. Shibia na ma binye. Okay, coronavirus ani ebane, tenya na coronavirus eten. Ina ke mokowo mask ye bia.
Nu mo abene bale wo le nche to wo mo. No ni ji coronavirus ne ba la ke beke bi e ko me ama mele because to amomo no ameju mo be ene ma no je na ban wa me.
Okay. Well, I'm asking him earlier he was talking about some reservations that he has about the construction of the harbor. Now we've shifted the conversation to coronavirus, and I'm asking him what it is like here, coronavirus. And he's telling me that because of the hardships and difficulties that a lot of them are going through, really they do not think about coronavirus. He says his friends here, some of them do not even know about the existence, of the virus. No ninya wo mask eh
nu mo e to wo no ne to bo na ban le nche aban ni ba wa bo bi ane ni le jo ekwe bo ni bo le nche ato bo no ba lo wu ya alo ozo mo ya no ba ne ato bo mini ane ba bala ke bo ba ju ni bi sani bo ju bo be ni ba fe ni ko teshi because bo le nche no ko ya no abo.
Essentially what he's saying is that they have more things to think about, bread and butter issues, and he's saying that God is the one who looks after, all of us. He says that they're going through a lot. So really, they don't have to think much about the virus. They have to think about their daily survival. That is what concerns them, the most. Let me, Hanin Konya Nyuma Basani Mabia Mewake, Tamanalate, Ankabobawi, Miniano.
Jeremy Benu be an one ke eto la ni jela den to la ke la ko yeku.
Well, he says they are suffering in this. He said they are suffering. They're going through a lot of difficulties. So they do not know about the existence of any virus. They do not think that there is any virus. Nani wo mask.
Mi mbesha ke la ko yeku kenye mi njomo commission genye.
Well, he says he does not think there's existence of any virus, so he walks around, freely without thinking about, any pandemic. She because of the virus. Virus and
one. Okay. So no one me
virus
ni na ko men aton page na me bu asako page na me alo ne kan ni ne kan ya no alo ne kan o mi ni na ko ele mi
okwa JoyNews awa fe ni BP ni won sabe na fun gba me ke ni bi ko
no le nkwako.
Okay. Well, he's saying that they've not seen people who died of the virus. And that is part of the reasons why he doubts the existence of the virus. But I was just telling him that about Unui.
Unui mo simutu mo benimbla yo le mutu mo nagano munaku. No ni munaku mu nyema yo dasi.
Okay. Onaku.
Minaku. Age nege lane efe mene nuku. Alo efe mene alo mene neke alo lane noji mene mo neke neke fe neke. Okay. Minaku wo no mi nyema yo dasi age nege nuku.
Well, he says that he has not seen. I was asking him whether he's heard of the coronavirus. He said he's not seen anyone infected with the virus, and so he cannot attest to its existence. Interesting.
Ke abaye le ne kwele enine kan na kanu tumo ni ese be ekwe ni ke je aba jame nyu aba ofa na ba anu an je le skwen oba smo sibi ele wonye.
Okay. Well, it shifted the conversation into the construction of the harbor. He's saying that this place is not the best for them. They've been relocated here, and he doesn't think that this is the best place for them. He thinks that a lot can be done, to better their lives. But he says that the conditions here really are not. The best. This is what you sleep on every day.
Oh, man,
so this is why you sleep every day. Every day, every day you sleep here.
Every back of beer, every back of one, every night.
Wait, every night you do it?
They sleep here.
Okay.
Our brothers.
Okay. Are they fishermen? Why do they sleep here?
Sometimes fishermen too stay here.
He mentioned that we'll be talking about two things, coronavirus, and then also the relocation of the people at the other side to, this place. But surprisingly, all of them are, interested in the construction of the harbor. What many of them are saying is that it has brought along some difficulties for them because they have been relocated here. But I mean, if you speak to the experts, if you speak to people who are seeing the future of that project, they'll tell you that it is for the betterment of the people here. We are told that when that harbor is, when they're done constructing that harbor, it would have storage facilities, there will be schools, there will be recreational facilities and all of that. So really, I've heard some people saying that it is better they endure the hardship now so they can enjoy, later. But earlier, what we are showing you is the field, here along where these people live. And we are told that some of this came actually from the ocean. Some of it also came from, domestic chores here as a result of the activities here along the coastline. Well, now we are at the coastline here at Jamestown. All these people you see here previously operated from where the new harbor, the construction of the new harbor, is taking place. So they've been relocated here and they are doing business here. What we've realized here is that a lot of the people here are complaining about the wharf that was constructed for them, the wharf, the platform that is supposed to protect their boats and also help them dock their boats, here at the coastline. That is that is what we are getting from the people. A lot of them also, telling us that they do not believe in the existence of coronavirus, so that's why we will not find them wearing their mask. It's COVID in the slums, and we gauge it, the adherence to the health protocol on coronavirus, and also finding out from the people what life is like living here after they were relocated from a place some meters away from this place where they were doing business. So let me start with this gentleman. Sir, what's your name?
Ayo.
Okay, so tell me, what are your issues? What is your problem here?
How do you see? Yes, baby, I was just
well, he says they are suffering here. Where they were previously was a better place, but here they're going through a lot of difficulties. He says this place is too small for them. He says they have a lot of canoes here.
Oh, says Sanka, what from Moyano, or say a motuaso, near Quastro Cacla. Since you do baby, or say,
So essentially what he's saying is that there are quite a number of canoes here, and this place is too small for them. He wants an extension of the wharf that has been constructed here. He wants it to be extended into the ocean. If they extend the wharf into the ocean, what is it going to do for you?
Oh, dear, how I pass it, it's so I bedroom you won't say, I blow, a bedroom, a beg giddy. Can we over to a second in our any aboka?
Okay. Well, he says when the tide gets higher, because the wharf is not too high for them, the likelihood that their canoes will be, swept away by the ocean, is there. And so he wants an extension of the wharf, and he wants the platform also raised to protect their canoes. Thank you very much. But apart from that, face mask and things, another face mask.
Maxwell Agbagba with that report earlier. Welcome to Frontline, a segment on the show where we focus everything on frontline workers. She was one of the frontline workers who dealt with Ghana's initial cases of COVID-19. But the numbers would increase and require more than what any health worker was prepared to give. Evelyn Nakidowona soon left her home to take up residence at the Ga East Municipal Hospital. This meant leaving behind her own mum and her 9-year-old son. Here is a story about a mother on the front line.
Hello. Yes, how are you? I'm fine, Mom.
A tired mother looks straight at the electronic device before her. She laughs. The tablet is the safest way to touch base with family, but keep her distance as she works to save lives. Evelyn Nakidowona is Quality and Safety Manager, Infection, Prevention and Control at the Ga East Municipal Hospital. Her job involves ensuring that the facility meets world standards in treating COVID-19 patients. Over 400 patients have been here in the past 5 months with an encouraging rate of recovery. Evelyn is a mother of a 9-year-old who has always been close to his mother.
I've missed you.
Yes, I miss you too.
Evelyn has been living in a facility provided by the hospital for the past 5 months, sacrificing family time on her patients.
Because I love what I do, I don't just get tired, and my people always feel like, won't you take a rest? I have not gone for 1 week rest before. Talk about off day, if it is 1 day, that is it, since we started in March. So management thought it was wise because I stay here and go all the way to East Legon, and it's getting late and we have to go through the traffic and come here before 6 o'clock.
So you'll be staying here?
So I've been given accommodation and I'm moving for the ending of beginning of March. And so I have to put in a whole lot. I haven't been able to go. I was able to go home once. We do a lot of WhatsApp call, video call to see them and talk. But if I had to go do something, my mom wants to see me. So he has a way of saying it. I bought something for you because you're not able to go to the market. Come for this nice dress, come for this shoe. Just ask permission and go and see them. They was like, oh, won't you sleep for today? No, my job doesn't mean I should sleep. And I need to social distance myself. Let me go away for a while because your safety too is also concerned. So quickly, I just spent 2 to 3 hours with them and then I leave the house.
And with rising cases of coronavirus, she barely has time for anything else.
At times, I even forget to eat. So one of them who has taken the responsibility, madam, you haven't eaten. Then just give me a reminder.
She thanks God for the staff of the Ga East Hospital who look out for each other within the period.
And I thank the Almighty God that the strength He has actually given me. I ask myself, so where do I get this strength from? Sleep like 12 a.m. at time, 11 p.m. and all that, making sure everything is said before. Wake up very early and then you come. But I have staff now who have actually accepted, and in fact, they have been wonderful. They are my deputies, I will say that. And so they've actually been able to man the front. And so I just get, instead of reporting at 6 a.m., I now come at 8:30. They've really helped me a lot, and I cannot do without them. And I say big thank you to them.
But her biggest motivation is little Emmanuel Anan, her son, living with her own mother, whom she checks up on from time to time. The love keeps her strong. The little boy's understanding of his mother's duties keeps her sane at such a period when she sacrifices to aid Ghana combat COVID-19.
I hope the president will want whatever you are doing and appreciate you.
Oh, okay. They were here, okay? But you have to stay safe for me, okay? Okay? Okay. And put on, well, use your sanitizer often, okay? And eat well. All right. Bye-bye. I'll come and visit you, okay? I will stay safe. You too stay safe, okay?
PSC Nanaya Safo, Joy News.
Bye.
Bye.
Live on the front line. You're still watching The Pulse with me, Gifty and Dopia. Very quick break. We'll be right back. When we return, we go to the Supreme Court. What happened there today? We'll tell you. Welcome back to the show. Now, there was drama at the Supreme Court on Thursday, that's today, as renowned lawyer Tachu Chikata refused to argue the NDC's review of the voters' register case. According to him, he had just received documents filed by the Electoral Commission and was therefore unable to argue the case. The Supreme Court had ruled that the EC can compile a new register as it excluded the use of birth certificate and existing voters' card as proof of identification. The NDC had wanted this decision set aside through the review application. The court, however, disagreed. Court correspondent Joseph Akable with more.
The initial case was heard by Chief Justice Kwesi Eni-Nyeboah and Justices Jones Doche, Paul Bafuboni, Sule Gbadegbe, Samuel Mafusau, Nene Amegacha, and Professor Ashi Kotei. But the NDC filed for a review with Justices Yawapil and Mariama Owusu joining the panel. The NDC also filed a request for the case to be heard earlier than usual. The court granted this request, but Mr. Chikata said he was unable to argue the case. He said his junior Dr. Dominic Ayeni had written to the Chief Justice suggesting that the case be heard during the vacation. He also wanted time to file additional documents. The court took the view that the request to file additional documents was not supported by law. The Apex Court directed Mr. Chikata to move his review application, but he refused, saying he needed more time. Deputy Attorney General Godfrey Yeboah-Damit therefore urged the court to dismiss the case. The court granted the request, saying the review application was without merit. Member of the NDC's legal team, Abraham Amaleba, says the court's decision flies in the face of justice.
Also, affidavit was served on us very late, and so there was the need for the counsel, Chikata, to apprise himself. He wasn't going to be able to move the motion to assist the court to arrive at an effective decision. And so Chikata was of the view that just grant me an adjournment which will enable me read through the processes that were filed and served on me whilst I'm on my feet. The Supreme Court will not take none of that.
The Deputy AG says you are running away from your own application.
The Deputy AG knows very well that if a process is filed on you while you are in court and you have not been able to look through that process, you request for time. You ask the court to give you a short adjournment to be able to look at the opposition's affidavit. The Deputy AG was on the frolic of his own. Indeed, he only played to the gallery. He knows that in the practice, you do not go ahead to move a motion when an affidavit has been served on you and there are some substantive issues that you must address in that affidavit in opposition. I think that the Deputy Attorney General was played to the gallery on this occasion.
This brings an end to the NDC's quest to have the voters' card used as part of the ongoing registration exercise.
Joseph Akable with that report. Meanwhile, NPP's Director of Communication, Boabeng Asamoah, is accusing Mr. Domilevo of personalizing his office.
And so it is the expectation, the ideal expectation, that they will leave their offices stronger and capable of carrying on than they came to meet it. Right. And therefore, I believe that if he has no confidence at all in anybody he's leaving behind there. And some of the previous letters when he's gone on leave, and the things that he wrote in those letters show those things up, that he would have somebody act and restrict the person from even attending meetings as the Auditor General. You see, so for me, let's step back. These matters are in the media. We are going to go in, and the next question, I'm sure Winston is too ready to ask, is about Kroll and Associates, etc. It's in the media space. It is in the civil society space. It is in the judicial space. It cannot be hidden. It cannot be hidden. If there's anything in Kroll that points to corruption on anybody's part, that points to deliberate, mischievous misallocation of government money into personal pockets, it will come out.
You sound like you know something.
That is the position Domlevo is taking. You surcharge somebody, you go through processes and prematurely surcharge somebody. The person takes you to court and says, these are the processes that you ought to have followed, which you didn't. And now you surcharge me, so I dispute the surcharge. And then you begin to use the media against that person. Even before the surcharge, you're already in the media. Now, come to court and justify why you chose to do the things you do. You avoid the court to the point where you are slapped with contempt charges. Doesn't that tell you something? Why do you want to conduct that most hallowed of services, auditing in public? It's not done. Auditors don't operate in public.
Their results, their outcomes are shared in public. There's a public account commission.
In respect of Kroll, does he have outcomes he can publish? Why was he in the media so quickly on Kroll? Does he have outcomes he can publish?
There were surcharges.
Yeah, but those surcharges are being contested in court. You understand? That's why I'm saying that the drama of it all, this impression being created that because of Kroll, the government wants him out. That is the subplot. The Domelevo plot. The subplot, because of Kroll, the government wants me out. And I'm saying that Kroll is there, it's on paper. Kroll is in the civil society space. We have very vibrant civil society now. Kroll is in the legal space. There is going to be evidence led on it in public. The court is going to sit in public. So there is nothing anybody can hide about Kroll. Right. So why is Mr. Domlevo riding Kroll to create the impression that he is the greatest anti-corruption fighter Ghana never had and will never have?
One of the spokesperson of former President John Mahama, however, is insisting that the presidency wants Mr. Domlevo out. Bawa Mokhtari has also been speaking on the matter.
Talk about the office to a very personal level now. You know, Kojo, I always want to avoid doing any politicking in these matters. I think that as a people, we have gotten to a stage where we need not overly downplay when institutions of government are being weakened, when institutions of government are being threatened, when institutions of government, and you know, we have a situation where our opponents now in government actually campaigned on being the purveyors of the rule of law. They actually campaigned on the grounds of coming to secure and strengthen our institutions of governance. When you watch the conversation that has come up since this Auditor General assumed office and actually started to work, you see, in one respect, you are saying that the Auditor General is not a personal thing. It is not personal to the individual. On another hand, we have even the Office of the Special Prosecutor that has come out publicly to complain about lack of funds, about lack of resources. Kojo, you know that even the office that the gentleman occupied became a subject of public debate. Why are we not giving the same leverage to the Auditor General? Why is he not allowed to independently undertake his duties and responsibilities as he prefers? And Kojo, note that even though there is a certain lawful need for every individual to at some point take a leave of absence, there are some categories of officers who even tell us, even in boardrooms, oh, I haven't gone on a break in a very long time. There's so much work to be done. Because of the exigencies of my job, I've been unable to take time off. You and I know that.
But what you're describing there,
what
you're describing there is a weak institution.
Absolutely.
So is it the government that's weakening it, or is it already weak? If we are afraid of what will happen when the Auditor General goes on.
Are we afraid of what will happen, or they are creating the impression that we are afraid? Has the Auditor General told you on any occasion that he's afraid that if he's not in the office, the work will not go on?
Then why is this
Have we not had occasions when the Auditor General has traveled and attended meetings in other jurisdictions and business of the office has been running?
Then why is this an issue?
The issue is only because I believe, and I think let's call a spade, that government wants him out.
Now, the Ghana Statistical Service says about 77.4% of Ghanaian household populations have seen a drop in their finances since the outbreak of COVID-19 in the country. The outfit made the statement public based on a recent survey with the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, and the World Bank on the socioeconomic impact of COVID-19 on households and jobs. Government statistician Professor Samuel Kobina Enim, who revealed these details in a press conference, explained that some 22 million citizens have been hit by a reduction in their incomes since March. I have here in the studio Omar Saidu. He's research coordinator with the Ghana Statistical Service. So we can break this down briefly before we go to Parliament for what is happening there as well. Mr. Omar, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So 22 million people have a fall in their income. That's what the report says. Does it give us a range? For example, let me first start with the areas that the research, the survey focused on. Which areas did you study?
Yeah, so thank you very much, and thank you for having me. The research initially looked at knowledge and attitudes, attitudinal change around COVID. Then we looked at issues around education, health, food security, incomes and jobs, coping mechanisms, and safety nets that are violence and crime as well.
Okay.
And some part of it focused on children.
Right.
Yeah.
But which specific areas did you do from where you collected your data, or which areas are we looking at here?
Yeah, so all these areas that I've mentioned, the data collection.
No, I mean
you mean the coverage?
Exactly.
Yes, so it's a nationwide representative sample survey, and I think that is very important to indicate. You recall that we did a Ghana Living Standard Survey, the most recent one, around 7. So had a 15,000 household sample size. So we took a subsample of that. And we were focused, we were targeting 4,000 households nationwide, covering all the 16 regions. But eventually we had 3,265 completing the survey.
I see.
Yeah.
So 4,000 households, you say?
That's what we're targeting.
Okay. To what extent is the coverage representative?
Yes, the coverage is quite representative, but because it is telephone interviews, you realize that some regions, especially some of the new regions, are somehow disadvantaged. For instance, Northeast. We didn't have a good number of respondents from there, but of course that does not mean that for the general estimates we are unable to have a fair estimation. But if you want to break it down to some specific ones, then it would not be very wise to do a disaggregation at that regional level because of the number of cases in this case.
So I talked about the amount, the number of people involved. You're saying that in your conclusion or in your analysis that 22 million people had a fall in their income.
Yeah.
What we say 22 million people, what are the characteristics of these people?
Well, it's everybody. We wanted to find out if from 16th of March, when the first mobility restrictions were introduced in the country, if there has been a decrease, an increase, or maybe stability in the income that the household usually have, the period prior to COVID-19, that is the period before 16th March. And we had over 75% of the households indicating that they have had a decrease in their household income. As to how much decrease, because 2 cities can be a decrease. 10 million can be a decrease. But as to how much the decrease is, that is the part that we didn't investigate in this particular
but at least you can tell that this number of people or this number of households have lost income.
Exactly.
And in these households, was it a specific, was it some sort of purposive sampling, or you just did a random sampling?
This is a scientific probability sampling.
Okay.
And it's a methodology that has been developed, and we work with the World Bank. And Ghana is not the only country doing this. Many other countries are doing the same thing, except that in our case in Ghana, we seem to be doing much more than many other countries are doing. So I just wanted to, I'm asking this because I want to know what the characteristics are. So, for example, what sort of work do the people in these households do? Are they vendors? Do they have 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 jobs? Do they have are they contract workers? You see what I mean? So that we'll be able to have an idea which people. So there are people who have lost their jobs. Bankers have lost their jobs. People who work within the hotel industry, for example, most of them lost their jobs. Some of them had to take half pay. Teachers in private schools, for example. So I want to understand which people, when we say 22 million people, who are the people? Yeah, for instance, if you look at those who were mostly affected in terms of decrease in income, there were people who reported that their income, the household income, is largely from non-farm family business. Okay. And you will realize that many such people are in the informal sector. Okay. Where we had a least reduction is those who are earning wages. People who are earning wages. Okay. And people who, so we looked at many other areas. Yeah. So 36%. I mean, at least this gives us an idea. Yes. So people who are within the informal sector, people who earn your normal monthly wages, and then people who run family businesses. Yes. So remittances. Some people rely on remittances. Yeah. So, for instance, so those who rely on remittances, the decrease was also almost 80%. Wow. Okay. I see. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all know the effect of COVID-19, but when we break it down like this, then it gives you an idea how much. So, the government put in some efforts to, some interventions to essentially cushion these people. Was there a part of the research that talks about the expectations of these people on the back of their losses? Do they have any expectations? Yes, generally there's some anxiety in the population relating to what COVID-19 is likely to leave us with. But we also are mindful of the fact that a lot of the interventions that came in when we had already started data collection, and so it will not affect everybody. Some interventions came in earlier, and so that is why we intend to do this as a tracer study. Yeah. So we'll go back to the same households in August, and then we want to see what has changed from the time we came. The first wave was done, and then the second wave. Yeah. So we can measure what has changed over time. Interesting. It's interesting. I mean, if you're listening to a statistician give you figures, you might, feel a bit reserved because, I mean, not all of us like figures. But essentially, the point is that 22 million of us lost income. And it especially affected people who work within, the informal sector. We do a lot of buying and selling. We do a lot of, our own businesses. So these people will mostly have been affected. Those who collect wages as well have been affected. And those who wait for Western Union or money from abroad, they've also been affected. Let me take your final thoughts, Mr. Saidu, as you wrap up. What next? I mean, these surveys are done by the statistical service, but then we also see a lot of donor support going in there. Is it that we personally, I mean, we as Ghanaians are not really interested in getting that information, or we don't have the wherewithal to do it without these supports? Yeah, I think it's all about priorities. And for us in GSS, this has been one of the key priorities we've had since the COVID. And so we started this, and then the donors also, some of them were interested in the same thing, and so they came in to support. Okay. But it does not mean that they were driving it. I see. So then my question is, as we wrap up, what next? Usually when you have done these surveys, what have they helped us achieve? I think this particular survey is one that provides us a very important insight, because you realize that our ability as a country to adequately combat COVID goes beyond the case numbers. We need to know how many children, for instance, are missing their routine vaccinations as a result of COVID. How many pregnant women are not receiving ANC as a result of this? And this would actually help the line ministries adequately plan to intervene. Yeah, so this is very useful, and we believe that the government will find and use it to support it.
I agree. It's useful. It's useful. I mean, at least we have an idea. We all know that there's been an impact, but at least this breaks it down and gives us an idea who is missing out on what. I would just have loved to know the specific communities, for example, so that we can shift. If we need to shift attention in terms of other interventions, we can put it there. But it makes sense. Yeah,
but in this regard, you would not want to go community because the sample size would not be adequate for you to look at communities. But for instance, one key thing, we realize that 35% of children in basic schools are not doing any learning at home because they're at home within this period. And naturally, you wouldn't know that that is happening. But at least now you have an idea. And so if you disaggregate this and you know which regions are most affected, where many children are not learning. Okay, and so these are some of the things that...
it's interesting. I mean, research is interesting, the things they can help you uncover. And I find it very interesting, except that I've run out of time. But thank you very much for coming and breaking it down for us. Umar Seidu is a research coordinator at the Ghana Statistical Service, running us through the recent survey that they have done that is showing us that 35% of children are not doing any learning at all. Those, I mean, some are doing online, but you know, not everybody has access to internet. The research they've done shows that 35% of our children are at home doing nothing, probably being bad boys and girls. So hopefully the Education Ministry will turn its attention to that area as well. But 22 million of us have lost money. That's what the research says. Now, the running mate of the NDC's flag bearer, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, has been defending her decision to join scores of senior NDC members who signed a petition for the Montie trio to be pardoned. In 2016, the former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast joined others asking then-President John Mahama to pardon the Montie Three. But Professor Opoku-Agyeman says has come under some criticism for her decision since she was named running mate. Speaking on Cape Coast-based Live FM, she justified her actions.
The
long and short of everything is that did people take their time to listen to what the people were alleged to have done? Did they hear any rape in what they said? What was their charge in court? Did it include rape? What was the sentence? In all this, no one went to court to discharge them. The court was allowed to do its work. Those of us who took time to listen to what they said, we prevailed on them to go and apologize, and they went to apologize. They continued apologizing until their sentences were handed down.
Okay.
We did not interfere with the court process. If you look at the judicial processes, there's something called clemency. Do you mean that when someone sins or commits a wrong and the person runs to you, a mother, to intervene and beg, would you push the person into the fire? Or when you beg, does it mean that you support what he did? When you have a child and a child goes out and throws stones that breaks the glass of someone's car, I know as a parent, you might have raised your child very well, but it is not always the case that they will stick to what you tell them. You might tell them, don't go to this place or don't do that, but they will go against it. Your child has gone against your words. He's done something wrong. Do you mean that the talks and all you will do to him will be in the public domain? No one heard what we told the three men in private. We said it's all right. Let the law take its course. And the law took its course. They went to jail, and we said to ourselves, we have to go and beg. Our Ghanaians telling us they've not heard this before. The former president could have intervened, but he didn't. He didn't do that. He allowed the due processes to be followed. What do we see today?
nyina ya tibida.
Okay.
Inti so be a one na say isanche ono so nche bia na nche MAHAMA'S obutu mu akata wondo. Wan yendam. Omambre ne ye na adwuma pepepepepe kesi ewie. Enda ye ho abaze.
Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman's selection as running mate for the opposition NDC is a major first for Ghanaian politics. But what does her selection mean to young women who aim at a future in politics? JoyNews' Annabella Ohene Jan has been finding out in this report.
A day many women have been looking forward to. A day a woman will climb the highest stage in Ghanaian politics as the running mate for a major political party in the history of Ghana and the potential vice president of the country.
I cannot hear the applause loud enough. Let me hear it for her.
Making history is gratifying, but what really matters is not to be the first through the door. What matters is to hold that door open for those behind us.
The lady and leadership.
What does this mean for young women who are looking to enter mainstream politics? Bridget Bonny, now a university graduate, has always seen herself in the shoes of Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. 3 years ago, she ran for office as SLC president. She, like many women, have swum against the tide.
Some people have this perception that women who are in politics or women in leadership are arrogant. So I had to do a lot of work. I mean, before they even got to know me, they already think I am arrogant. So the seat of the president, we all know, they've made it a male-dominated thing. So it was a little bit of a challenge. I mean, for a woman, for the first time, I mean, going to pick a form to talk of running and all that, it was a challenge.
The selection of Prof. Nana Jane is a bold step in the right direction. Now, why am I saying that?
Bridget is not alone. Na Adakwado is aspiring to be in active politics one day.
Occupying major roles. Why we are more impressed about this is not only because she's a female and she has been selected, but because she's qualified by all standards. And by the things she has done, the political position she has held, the platforms in which she has served, you can see that she has clearly risen above the ranks to get to such a position. So we see this as a feat, and it's an encouragement to me and other ladies out there that it is possible to get to the utmost level and even go beyond that.
I think this is not why we should have to think of her being a woman, but her competencies. They see, will she be able to deliver as we expect her to do?
We plan not to disappoint you.
Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman's appointment for many women have broken the glass ceiling for their participation in politics. What she adds to John Mahama's candidature in the December elections, however, will show if truly the term for women at the apex in politics and leadership has arrived.
A beautiful report there put together by Annabella. I'm going to take you right now to Parliament. So what's happening there? We'll be talking about the vehicles, but Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says he has succeeded in convincing majority and minority MPs on the Finance Committee to allow for a suspension of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. The committee is currently meeting to consider the minister's request to suspend the act, which says the Finance Minister should be removed from office through a vote of censure if budget's deficit exceeds 5% of GDP. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu says the minority will ensure that the minister is sanctioned. But after meeting the committee, Mr. Ofori-Atta says the issues have now been clarified. Apologies for that. We'll bring you the finance minister who has been speaking to Joseph Opoku Gakpo a while back. Joseph is joining me right now. He can tell us more. Hi, Joseph. Joseph, do you hear me? Joseph, I'm hoping that you do hear me now. Now, we're unable to bring the sound of the of the finance minister. I do hear you perfectly. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Great. So we're unable to play the soundbite of the finance minister. What has he been telling you?
He's actually explained issues to members on the Committee on Finance, and he's convinced them about the need to suspend the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and he looks forward to the committee backing his request so that then there is no censure or sanction, because these are not normal times, and he virtually doesn't have an option than to go ahead and spend beyond the expected budget.
That's not an explanation we've not heard before, especially from him himself. I mean, this week he has explained that to the media as well. But what are you picking up? Do the minority and the majority MPs agree as he's saying, those on the committee?
No, it doesn't look so. John Jinapo, who is a member on the Finance Committee on the minority side, for example, walked out of the meeting a while ago and indicated that as far as he's concerned, a lot of the things that the finance minister says he'll be spending the additional sums on are things that are not COVID-19 related. He pointed to expected expenditures on issues of agriculture, on compensation, which has to do with salary schemes. And for him, that means that whatever additional sum they are asking for is not exactly targeted at dealing with COVID-19. And so for them on the minority side, they think the Fiscal Responsibility Act shouldn't have been suspended, and they think that the amount in question with the supplementary estimate to the tune of 11.8 billion is money that will go virtually into wastage and not exactly used for any useful purpose.
I'm sure that we'll hear from the finance minister much later when you return. But Joseph, let's focus a bit more on a demand that the minority is making. They want amendments to the bill that's banning importation of vehicles that are 10 years and above. Tell us a bit more about that.
So they actually want that entire bill, in terms of the amendment that was done to the customs revenue bill, held back, and they don't want the said ban to come into force. You know, this is an act that was passed by Parliament in March 2020, and the indications in the bill was that its implementation is supposed to start in November. And so the indication is that the Customs Service and Preventive Service are preparing to implement the bill, which is what they're asking for a suspension of it, because the minority insists that it will not be in the interest of the country. We would end up seeing a situation where the jobs of people who play within the second-hand vehicle space in Ghana will be lost, and the vehicles that are being assembled in the country will still remain unaffordable as far as the ordinary Ghanaian is concerned. Kwame Abuja, who is the ranking on the Roads and Transport Committee, has been addressing the media here in Parliament, and he says they wouldn't want that said amendment implemented at all.
Looks like our sounds from Parliament aren't being very kind to us today. Sincere apologies for that. But Communications Minister Esla Okufu has also been defending this law. She says it will help provide jobs for Ghanaians, like Joseph said earlier.
A very well-intentioned policy. Now, are we saying we don't want foreign direct investment in the automotive sector in this country? Is that what we're saying? Are we saying that we don't want the local assembly of vehicles, which will end up being cheaper than the imported vehicles that we bring in for our use? I'd like to ask my good friends what car they use. Since they are so against the Toyotas and the VWs, are they using Kantanka? All of them are using Toyota Land Cruisers. And yet today they are telling us that imported vehicles are bad. New vehicles are not good. Now, what even surprises me about the little that I heard them say is that they are throwing alarming sentiments out that
the law bans the importation of salvage vehicles, when indeed the law allows salvage vehicles upon certain conditions. So which is which? How is the local automotive industry going to be destroyed once we allow the local assembly of vehicles in this country? I don't see it. Are we saying that automatically, once these vehicles start coming in, start being produced here locally, then all of us have to switch by a certain date to using locally assembled cars? No. We still have vehicles that are running on the roads, that will need spare parts, that are being imported into this country with reduced taxes, that would help keep our local Abosokai and other mechanics in business for as long as the foreseeable future. So what are my friends on the other side talking about? Exactly what is their fear? One, we all know that it is a good thing. And they were the first to applaud Rwanda and Paul Kagame when the notice came that VW and Toyota were going to assemble cars in Rwanda. They were happy. That's the best thing that could happen to the African continent. And Rwanda is showing leadership and it's stimulating their economy. When it happens in Rwanda, it is good. But when Ghana does it, it is bad. I've never seen anything like this before.
That's State Communications Minister SLUM Kufu. Joseph, let me wrap up with you. What else is there for us to share with our audience?
Well, today has been the day ahead of the end of the week. So the Majority Leader, Chairman Sabonzo, has been outlining what the House will be doing next week. You recall that earlier, the Minister for Special Development Initiative, Hawa Kumsin, was expected in the House yesterday. She didn't show up. The indication is that she will come around next week in order to respond to questions having to do with various development initiatives in Sawoma Dojiri. And then you would also see about 6 other ministers, including the Minister for Interior, coming to the House to respond to questions. And so the indication from the Majority Leader is that the week after this coming Monday, the House will go on break and allow for MPs to get back to their constituencies and get work done. And this is something that should happen next week Friday, but he requested that MPs support him so that then that is pushed to the Monday ahead.
Days ahead for them. Joseph, thank you very much. Joseph Opoku Gakpo there. He's been speaking to the Finance Minister. Like I said, we weren't able to bring you that. We'll bring it to you in our subsequent bulletins. Look out for it either on Business Live or on JoyNews Prime. But I'm going to go right now to Zoom and speak to Assistant Commissioner of Policy and Programs at the Customs Division of the VRA, Awea Julius Kantum. Mr. Kantum, good afternoon. Thank you so much for your time. We just want to have a bit of an understanding on this particular bill and how it is supposed to work. You know, now that we're getting the minority opposing it and all of that. But you are a technocrat. Tell us what we need to know about this bill. First of all, when does it start?
Good afternoon, and I'm happy to be here. First of all, the law will take effect on the 1st of November.
Okay. So
the bill was assented to and became law on the 30th of April 2020. And then there was a 6-month grace period. After that, it will come into effect. And that date is 1st November 2020.
Okay, so 1st of November 2020. So it means that any vehicle that is supposed to get to Ghana by 1st of November will have to be checked for how old it is. And if it is 10 years, it would be what? Sent back, confiscated?
No. And please, let's understand the key provisions of the amendment.
Okay.
There's the first one that is in respect of vehicles under Chapter 87. And that chapter is for motor cars that are principally designed for the transport of persons.
Okay.
Those ones, unless and until the minister by legislative instrument appoints or specifies a date, that provision of 35% import duty will not happen. In the same vein, the one on overage vehicles, that is vehicles that are over 10 years of age, that can only come into effect when, in consultation with the Minister of Trade, a legislative instrument spells out the conditions and all the necessary regulations that would happen before the law takes effect.
Okay, so
now, the only thing that would take effect on the 1st of November is in respect of salvage motor vehicles.
So I just needed to understand. So the salvage motor vehicles, what's going to happen to them on 1st of November if you have some coming in?
Now, maybe you have to just find out what actually is a salvage vehicle, and that is important.
Okay.
Because the law defines what a salvage motor vehicle is. And for that matter, let me just read verbatim from the law. It says, salvage motor vehicle means a motor vehicle which A, has been wrecked, destroyed, or physically damaged by collision, fire, water, or any other occurrence, and B, does not have a clean title. So it means salvage vehicles are vehicles that are damaged, physically damaged, either by collision, by fire, or by some other occurrence.
Okay.
And it does not have clean title.
Okay. Okay, so those vehicles, are there any considerations of the extent of damage, or as long as it is damaged and it doesn't have a title, it's not permitted to enter this country?
Yes, that's precisely the point.
Okay.
So currently, the position of the law is that once it's a salvage motor vehicle, that is that it is damaged either by collision, fire, and all the factors that we have enumerated, and does not have a clean title. Now, maybe I should just explain what a clean title is. A clean title essentially means that a vehicle that is not damaged, that is not a salvage vehicle.
Yeah.
If you want to put it that way. Now, all new cars definitely have clean titles. All pre-owned cars that have not had any issues would have clean titles.
Yeah.
Used cars can still be imported insofar as they have clean titles.
And they are not damaged.
That is a point that has to be made, because people think that with the law it means that used cars cannot be imported. That is not the position of the law.
Okay.
The law says salvage motor vehicles from the 1st of November cannot be imported.
Okay, okay. I'm sure that we'll have more time to be engaging you further on this. So if you're listening or if you're watching and you need a clarification, I mean, what you ought to take home is that by 1st of November, you can still import used vehicles, but those vehicles must not be damaged and they should come with titles. Mr. Kantum, I got that correct, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Absolutely correct. That is that.
Okay. And as to whether or not we will be whether or not the entire thing happens or begins to happen, the entire law takes effect on November. You said we'll need to wait for the consultations to go through.
There are the other provisions that people obviously are interested in. The Amendments Act itself, it was intended to provide incentives for the automotive assemblers and then manufacturers. It was not, I mean, to as it were, make it impossible for people to bring in cars, as the interpretation appears to be the case. Now, in providing for those incentives for the automotive manufacturers and assemblers, it was also important that those kind of cars, like the salvage vehicles, which are imported so heavily into Ghana, if they were allowed to be imported, they will crowd out the market for the assemblers and then automotive manufacturers. And that would be a disincentive a disincentive to them. And that is precisely the reason why that provision of the law was put in.
Okay, well, consultations are still ongoing. The minority in Parliament are calling for some sort of a suspension or amendment. So we'll still have more conversations on this. We thank you so much for your time, sir. I've been talking to Assistant Commissioner of Policy and Programs at the Customs Division of the GRA, Awea Julius Kantum. By 1st of November, if you have a vehicle that is damaged, that doesn't have title, you cannot bring them into the country. I'll take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We'll be doing sports shortly, but before that, our headline story. 5 leading suspects in the murder of a 90-year-old woman who was lynched in Kafaba have been arrested. The 5 have been charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Well, one of the concerns that Amnesty International, for example, has raised over the death of the woman is that no government official has paid a visit to the family. Gender Minister Cynthia Morrison today has been to the area today. She's been interacting with the family.
When we got here, I heard that the community was surrounded with water. There's fishing going on. So I told myself, do I buy a land here and build a house and become a member of this community? When they were sharing the mask, I was watching. Other places, people will fight over it. But here, the young men who wanted and they did not get, immediately they did not get, they just folded their arms like that and they stood still. So I asked myself, what happened that fateful day? What came into the minds of these beautiful people sitting here? And because in the video, the gathering was just like this. And nobody said anything, but people were just cheering on. I am a Christian. I see a lot of you in my life, even though I'm now Haja Aisha. Chief Imam gave me a name, Haja Aisha. So I'm now Haja Aisha. I know you believe in Muhammad. You believe. I believe in Jesus Christ. Muhammad is bigger than any witch. Jesus is bigger than any witch. So if somebody is a witch and there's a law, do you take the law into your own hands and lynch the person to death?
That's the gender minister who visited the family members today. We'll bring you more of that story in our subsequent bulletins. But the 5 who have been charged, I have their names here, run through them for you. Haruna Anes, who is 34 years old, Isifu Tanko, who is 35 years old, Shaibu Muntala, 29, Sulemana Ali, 35, and Isifu Zakibo, 32. They've all admitted to inviting the priestess who led the lynching of Ekua Dente. A UK-based NGO, the Nautical Institute, has honored the Ghana Maritime Authority for its efforts in repatriating stranded seafarers to and from Ghana. In June, the authority rescued about 25 seafarers who had remained at sea for months as borders closed due to the COVID-19 outbreak, replacing them with a new set of crew that included 12 Ghanaians. The citation was presented to the Director General of the authority yesterday.
Many seafarers who had been locked up at sea due to restrictions imposed as a result of the coronavirus outbreak were finally rescued by officials of the Ghana Maritime Authority, and arrangements put in place to ensure regular crew swaps to ensure the seafarers get the opportunity to spend some time with their families in these times of difficulty. The effort has been recognized by UK-based NGO, the Nautical Institute. The institute presented citations to the Director General of the Ghana Maritime Authority, in which it expresses its grateful recognition of his hard work, commitment, and personal sacrifice in serving the needs of his fellow Ghanaians around the world. Local Secretary of the Nautical Institute, which has a consultative status at the International Maritime Organization, Captain William Amenshia, explained the rationale for selecting the Ghana Maritime Authority for the honor.
A number of organizations and individuals in some countries responded to the calls of desperate seafarers, and such countries finally emerged as areas of crew change, where private and public sectors came together to make the seafarers movement far easier. Ghana has become such a hub where individuals have collaborated with local authorities to lift restrictions regarding crew transfer. The Nautical Institute is therefore pleased to recognize the Ghana Maritime Authority and Captain Joshua Ni Ado for their pivotal role in facilitating and handling crew changeover during the pandemic, and award them the Institute's certificate of approval.
Receiving the citation, Director General of the Ghana Maritime Authority, Thomas Kofi Alonsi, said even though the authority was simply performing its duty, it was grateful for the recognition. He said the COVID-19 pandemic has plunged seafarers around the world into an unprecedented and desperate situation.
As you are well aware, the COVID-19 pandemic has plunged seafarers around the world in an unprecedented and desperate situation. As we speak today, over 200,000 seafarers are stranded on ships and waiting to be repatriated globally due to the worldwide travel restrictions imposed by countries as a measure to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has ravaged the world.
Mr. Alonsi thanked President Akufo-Addo for granting permits for chartered flights carrying seafarers to land.
It is in view of this that I wish to thank the President of our land, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and his government for the foresight in understanding the plight of these frontline workers who have played their part during this pandemic to be relieved and repatriated by aircraft, even though the country's borders by land, sea and air are closed.
There are calls for journalists to ensure the fight against COVID-19 is not abandoned in the heat of election campaigns now that the political landscape is getting heated. Ghana heads to the polls in less than 5 months, and stakeholders are concerned partisan politics will overshadow the fight against coronavirus. At the launch of the 25th Ghana Journalist Award, Executive Chairman of Jonah Capital, Sam Jonah, charged the media to keep the focus on the pandemic. Mamesi Nyamishe Thompson has more.
The world is adjusting as many try to live the new normal, but with barely 5 months to a crucial election preceded by pockets of violence at voter ID registration centers, Executive Chairman of Jonah Capital, Sam Jonah, foresees media attention being swayed from the pandemic.
It is therefore charge the media not to sacrifice the fight against corona for political campaign, election campaign. You have a unique responsibility in this fight. And as I said, you have to keep us, all of us, focused and to assure that we don't drop our guards. These are very difficult times indeed, Mr. Chairman. Whilst objective and juicy political stories, headlines, and streaming will soon be clamoring for your attention and platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't let this happen at the expense of the attention that you have to pay to the fight against COVID. I have the utmost confidence in the GTA's ability to rise to the occasion. Indeed, it is refreshing to note that the GTA, in appreciation of the challenges imposed by COVID-19, intends to organize this year's media events virtually. This strong showing of leadership by the GTA gives you the moral right to demand safety from all our stakeholders, including our politicians.
The GJ Awards is meant to maintain high journalistic standards, and in a time of uncertainties, the stakes for journalists are even higher. Chief Director of Parliamentary Affairs Ministry, Dr. Evans Agridako, reiterates the media's obligation to protect peaceful coexistence in Ghana.
When the laws are with the men, they are the best of animals. When they are separated from the laws, they are the worst of animals. So we are operating under a constitution that will constrain our behavior and literally, force us to be free in the words of J.J. Rousseau. So the media's role is critical, and that is why I said that they will give meaning to democracy. We are talking about rights, which is critical, which is enabling right. That's the freedom of speech, which is enabling right. And that is where you fit in. If you relegate your duties and responsibilities to the background, we will suffer for it as a country.
Meanwhile, this year's GJ Award ceremony is slated for October 24, and entries will be accepted virtually. President Avil Monihins reports on COVID-19 will be highlighted.
We have created a special category for journalists, and these rewards will not only go to individual journalists. We'll look at journalists who have hosted, who continue to host quality programs relative to COVID-19. We'll look at radio and TV stations which are outstanding in the coverage of COVID-19. We also look at other factors, everything COVID-19. And so, in fact, these categories will dominate the entire 2020 awards, and we are encouraging journalists who have sacrificed during this period, journalists who have given up ownership of their lives in the service of this nation in these hellishly difficult circumstances. Please rest assured that your sacrifices will not be in vain. The GJ is so caring, and the GJ will mobilize whatever resources at its disposal to invest in this category and to honor handsomely journalists who have made these sacrifices.
Mamiesi Nyamiche Thompson reporting for Joy News.
And before we go, we're being told to learn to live with the virus. And although many countries seem to be adjusting to the new lifestyles, there's growing concern, especially in Europe, of a second coronavirus wave as daily cases rise. In fact, restrictions eased are being reintroduced in some countries. Mamavi Owusu-Abuaji has been interacting with Thomas Sparrow, political correspondent with our partners, DW.
Well, in Germany, there's concern in particular about local outbreaks when it comes to coronavirus. There's one local outbreak, for example, in the southern part of the country, in Bavaria, at a farm. But Germany is also concerned about the risk that holidaymakers pose who have left the country for their summer holidays and are now returning. So one of the decisions that was mentioned by Germany's health minister was compulsory coronavirus testing for people who have come back from countries and regions deemed risky upon their arrival in Germany. When other tourists arrive from countries that are not necessarily deemed so risky, they could still carry out one of those tests, but it wouldn't be compulsory. That's one, for example, one measure that has been taken by the German government in the last few days. Something else that they have been discussing is what to do when there are regions, for example, that are particularly affected in a country that is not so particularly affected. So Germany, for example, understands that the numbers in Spain have been reduced if you compare them with a few weeks or a few months ago. Yet at the same time, there are regions within Spain that are at risk, where the numbers have increased. So that's why the German government also decided to advise against all non-essential travel to 3 regions in Spain that have been particularly affected by the coronavirus.
And Thomas, here in Ghana, borders are still closed. Is there still traveling in the European countries?
Borders are not closed within the European Union, so basically Germans and other Europeans can travel to different countries within the bloc, obviously, as long as they maintain social distancing, as long as they wear the mask, as long as they respect social rules in the respective country or the respective region where they are. It becomes a bit more difficult when you look beyond the European Union because, as you well know, for countries like Brazil or the United States or Russia have been hit by the coronavirus in the last few weeks, or Latin America as well. And that means that there is an advice against travel to those regions. It also has to do with the fact that in those regions, many airports are still closed and people are not allowed to travel freely. So all in all, I would say that Germans and Europeans can travel, and they have been asked to do so if possible, either locally, regionally, or if they're going to another country, to do so within the European Union. But again, obviously making sure that they follow the rules and that they look very carefully at the numbers in the respective place where they're traveling to.
And again, Thomas, Germany is one of the countries to have eased restrictions in the very early stages, but there are now fears of a second wave. Why is that?
So there are fears of a second wave. German health officials have insisted that Germany comparatively fared well when it came to dealing with the initial outbreak of the coronavirus. If you remember, we spoke about it on various occasions, how Germany compared to other European countries like France or like Spain or like Italy. Yet at the same time, officials are now concerned about the possibility of a second wave. Some officials, some politicians, for example, a regional politician here in Germany mentioned that the second wave is actually already here. But health officials from Germany's Public Health Institute have been more cautious when talking about this possible second wave. However, they have stressed that there are signs of concern, that Germans have to be conscious, for example, of those local outbreaks that I mentioned, the fact that there has been an increase in, for example, the numbers of infected people after family gatherings or at the workplace. So those are issues that are of concern, as well as what I mentioned earlier, the fact that many people are returning from their holidays abroad.
And Thomas, are there predictions of how this second wave would look like, and is that affecting behavioral? Let me ask the question again. Are there predictions? So Thomas, are there predictions of how the second wave will look like, and is that affecting behaviors?
Well, there is, as a start, no consensus on whether we're already in the second wave or we aren't. As I said, there are some politicians, some media outlets that are talking already of a second wave here in Europe, but at the same time, other officials, in particular health officials, have been cautious and have said that they still don't know whether this is indeed a second wave or whether this is something different. So when we talk about predictions, we have to be very careful. However, when you look at how Germans and other Europeans have reacted, there are important elements to consider. German officials have said that one of the reasons why the numbers have increased here in this country is because Germans have become complacent, or in fact, some even said negligent when it comes to respecting those social distancing rules or the use of face masks. And that's why health officials have been very, very strict when it comes to telling Germans, telling people to maintain those social distancing rules and to be clear that the pandemic is not over, even when you consider that Germany comparatively has done better than other European countries.
Just finally on this, is there stricter punishment for those who flout the protocols?
That's interesting because for a long time, for example, here in Berlin, people were asked to wear face masks on public transport, for example, but there was no specific punishment. That, however, changed a few weeks ago, and now there is a fine if you are found on the public transport system without a mask when you should be wearing a mask. So this gives you an idea of how officials dealt with this at the beginning, how they're dealing with it now, and how people, for example, on public transport are also considering these issues. Germany and German authorities didn't actually want to have to fine people for this. They were actually hoping that people would do this on their own will, because they believe that it's important, because they understand the risks. But it has also come to the point where in certain cases they have found it important to impose certain fines to make sure that people do follow the rules.
That'll be all for me for now. Unfortunately, we weren't able to bring you sports like I promised. Sorry about that. But we have Let's Talk Showbiz, which is how we wrap up the entire show. Do stay and have fun with it. But there is more news at myjoyonline.com if you do log on. Of course, our top story, the courts dismissing voters register case over there. And we have other stories there. Our YouTube link has our videos. You can follow our programs from there. My name is Gifty Andopia. Always a pleasure coming your way. Many thanks for your time.